Yeah, not on the clickers. You can just write them on your board there. Yeah, and I kind of messed the timer up, so go ahead and just hold it up when you're ready. Okay. Need more pens? Yeah. I do have one. All right, so a lot of you are saying C and D, but then I see some A, C, and E's. I see some other things. So let's talk about that a little bit. So this one here, A, this is what like a typical hernia is. When someone says they have a hernia and something kind of pushes out of their abdomen, that's an abdominal hernia, okay, which is kind of the more standard type of hernia. Okay, and anytime we talk about a tissue herniating, that kind of means it stretches out and allows something to kind of push through it, so we can have a herniated disc as well, like in our back. It's the same kind of thing, right? So that's not what an inguinal hernia is. Not B, but this one here, a failure to close the passageway between the abdomen and the scrotum. Now, it's not like it's completely closed because there's still blood vessels and nerves, as well as the vas deferens that goes through that passageway, but it needs to mostly close because the testes descend from the abdomen into the scrotum. So the hole needs to be bigger during that process, but then it tightens up after that. A lot of times if it doesn't, then that's kind of the root problem of an inguinal hernia, okay? But that can lead to this, which is the intestines can actually get down into the scrotum, and that can lead to cutting off of the blood supply to the intestines that made it down there because it's too tight, and then that can lead to potentially life-threatening conditions if those intestines get destroyed by not having blood supply. So it can definitely be dangerous. Yeah, and E is what you would see in this, right, where the intestines actually push out of the abdominal wall a little bit. But yeah, so C and D are the correct answers there. Okay. Questions about any of that? Okay. Number 2, go ahead. That one's dead too? Yeah, I got one right here.
Is a spermatic cord. Is the vas deferens.
So Kendall, this is the one you were talking about? The image that was pointing to the same thing, you thought?
No. I actually mixed it up.
Oh, you mixed it up. Okay.
But I'll show you. Here, because this was like the main title, and then this is kind of like a sub point.
Oh, I see. Just the way it was in there. Okay, gotcha. I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. The hierarchy level of the bullet points. I see what you're saying.
It was under this, but I mixed up that it was back here.
I see what you're saying. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So you can answer both those questions on the whiteboard there. All right, go ahead and hold those up when you're ready. Okay. Good. So pretty much every team is saying C and B. Okay. So yeah, let's walk through. Yeah, we'll walk through each of these. So A is a spermatocord. Okay. So the spermatocord is what contains a bunch of stuff, right? It contains the blood vessels, the nerves, and the vas deferens. Okay. And then from there, point B is pointing to the one that you guys said was the second one, the structure that's cut in a vasectomy. Okay, anytime you see the word ectomy, just means we're removing something from the body. So that's the vas deferens. So it's removal of part of the vas deferens, right? And the way they do vasectomy is to take a little section of this out, pretty much cut it in 2 different spots, take a little section out, and then burn both of the ends so there's no more connection anymore, right? And that's really what it is. And so that's so that's the vas deferens, okay? And then C and D, C is just pointing to the tubular network there, which is the seminiferous tubule, which is where the initial site of sperm production is. So we'll say C there, and then it was B here, okay? And then D is just that kind of white protective layer that the tubular system is embedded into. It's not part of the tubular system, but just kind of what gives structure to the testes and holds the tubular system in place. And that's the tunica albuginea. We'll also see a tunica albuginea on Wednesday in the ovaries, in the female reproductive system, and it serves somewhat of a similar function there. So, okay. Any questions on any of those structures? All right. Everybody got that? Good. Okay. All right, next one. Go ahead and label this one, and then you can answer those 3 questions there on your whiteboard.
What did you guys think?
Then F is the urethra.
All right, go ahead and hold those up if you're ready there. All right, so some of you saying AFD, a couple of you saying AFB. Yeah, so let's walk through that. Okay, so the one that makes the majority of the semen, makes 70% of the volume of the semen. What do we call that one? Yeah, so the seminal vesicle. So that one is this guy right here. Okay, you can see where it secretes its fluids into the tubular system right there. Okay. And then B wasn't necessarily a structure we talked about, but that is the ejaculatory duct. Okay, so that is pre-sharing with the urinary system, right? Because the bladder's right here. Okay, the urine's going to enter right there. So this part right here is before it's shared with the urinary system. Okay. All right, and then we move into yeah. So that one was A, right? Okay, let's do the questions first. And then blank is the first shared tube with the reproductive and urinary systems. So a lot of you said F for that one. So yeah, so that one's not going to uncover next. We'll just go in order, I guess. So C, what's C? Prostate, yeah. And so you can see how the part of the urethra is just completely embedded in that prostate, right? So if the prostate gets large, then it just starts smashing down on the urethra, right? And so it's actually a phenomena in older males that it's harder to initiate urination, right? Because there's just too much pressure on the urethra, as well as prostate glands have a tendency to become cancerous in a way to grow too much, right? And sometimes that becomes cancerous, meaning that it actually spreads through the body, but a lot of times it's just benign, right? Where it just means it just gets too big. Which doesn't actually spread around the body like cancer does, but it definitely makes urination much more difficult. So yeah, so that's the prostate. D, that little tiny gland there, what's that one called? Yeah, that bulbourethral gland. Again, we'll see a similar gland, or actually really a set of glands in the female anatomy on Wednesday, okay? And then E there, what's that one? Yeah, that's the one we already talked about, the vas deferens. Okay. And then F is pointing to this little section of the tubular system. And so that's the urethra, the start of the urethra. It just calls it the prostatic urethra because that's the part that's in the prostate, but then it goes out and becomes the urethra that goes to the very end of the penis there. Okay, so with A, F, and then D are answers there. Okay. Questions on any of those? Go ahead, Olivia. Purpose of the what? Prostate? Yeah, it's not super well understood. Yeah, it's one of those things that we don't really know the purpose of it, and that's why a lot of times when it does get too big, it can be removed, which was more of a common practice at one point. But there are risks to that surgery that could damage some sexual function later and other things, even urinary function later, and so it's not necessarily done now unless it's a metastatic tumor that looks like it's actually going to spread through the body. But that was why it was removed pretty frequently before, is because we didn't really know what it did, and we still don't really understand like the real function of it. Yeah, so good question. Other questions on that? Okay, all right, so this one here, choose all that would be true. All right, go ahead and hold them up. Yeah. So yeah, almost everybody's saying A, D, and E. Okay, so A, a lack of nitric oxide release in the blood vessels in the penis. So nitric oxide is a vasodilator that is created, produced in those endothelial cells that line all of our blood vessels. Okay, when it's released, it causes vasodilation. Okay, so that's part of it. D, damage to those endothelial cells in the blood vessels of the penis. So that's connected directly to that. If we're not making enough nitric oxide in those endothelial or in the blood vessels, that's a problem with the endothelial cells. And then lastly, the one that's pretty sad, the use of pornography is actually is a full-on medically diagnosed phenomenon at this point that leads to erectile dysfunction because of the fact that males just get so used to seeing such extreme images that actually interacting with a sexual partner is not enough stimulation. So yeah, so that's a sad one for sure. A, D, and E. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do this one.
I think it does. Because I don't think
Yeah, whenever you're done with this one, if you want to hold it up and we can move on to the next one. Good, so most people are all saying B and E. Okay, so B, just remember Sertoli and FSH, Leydig and LH. Got the two L's that go together. And then E, Sertoli cells release inhibin, Leydig, testosterone. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and go to the next one. And this is just a chance for you to practice drawing out a hormone loop. So go ahead and do this. If you want to do it on your whiteboard, that would be wonderful too. But if you want to just do it in your notes, you can do that, and that's fine.
I drew it out already.
Like 1, 2, 3.
Oh, I didn't draw the glands. Hypothalamus.
Yeah, I think so. What are those?
Say that again. Those are supposed to represent the hormones, I think. Yeah. So you just by which cell they go to, you can tell whether it's LH or FSH.
Oh, that makes
They might have just done that to do it like logically
All right, we've just got a couple minutes left, so I'm going to move on to this one here, and this pretty much answers that question as well as there's the other questions there in the bottom. So let's walk through this. What's our top gland that's almost always involved? Hypothalamus. Okay, we got that. So there's going to be some hormone release from there that you guys don't have to know the name of. Okay, I like it. I like it. Yeah, if you did some work on that whiteboard, let's see it. Come on. All right, good, good. Sorry, I didn't mean to just downplay that. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Okay. And then number 2 and 4 are just representing the hormones that come out of the anterior pituitary. So the first one there would be FSH. Okay. It's going to go down and cause chemicals to be released that aid in sperm development. Which cells is it going to stimulate? Sertoli cells. Good. Okay. Then we go back up to number 4. That's going to be LH. It's going to stimulate those Leydig cells to release which hormone? Testosterone. Good. Okay. And then testosterone does lots of things, right? So it has does some negative feedback here, which is what we can see there. So negative feedback by testosterone. We also see some negative feedback by inhibin, as was on the quiz. Okay. So that one came from the Sertoli cells. Okay. So yeah, so it was like 5 is where testosterone was released. Okay. The 3 broad actions that we see with testosterones are number 1, sex characteristics. Okay. Sperm development. And then just growth. So it's an anabolic hormone, so it causes growth of all tissues. Okay, so sex characteristics, sperm development, or you could just say related to reproduction, and then growth. Go ahead. Yeah. They both get released all the time from the pituitary. Good question. Yeah. Other questions? Go ahead.
So testosterone and inhibin, do they go to the anterior pituitary and hypothalamus, or like is it like one or the other?
Yeah, this one kind of shows inhibin just going to pituitary. Yeah, let's just to make it simple, let's just say they both inhibit FSH and LH release. Okay. I honestly don't know for sure if inhibin also goes up to the hypothalamus. I think it does for both, like both do, but let's just, the basic thing is that it inhibits FSH and LH release. So yeah, good question. Okay, and then last one here, let's go ahead and do this one. Finish writing it down. Yeah. Got it? Okay. Yeah, go ahead and hold it up when you're ready. Okay. What's that? Oh, a spider. Okay. So hoping nobody passed out or something. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, listen up for one sec, guys. It's a good point of clarification here. So I know in the notes it had both FSH and LH would be inhibited by all the excessive testosterone, which is true. Okay. The one that we're more concerned about for fertility would be FSH, right? Because LH leads to testosterone release. We've already got plenty of testosterone. Testosterone definitely plays a role in fertility, but we've got plenty of it, right? The issue is if you don't have any FSH release, you're not going to get inhibin release. You're not going to get the blood testes barrier formed. You're not going to get the help on the sperm development. So that leads to infertility. So FSH is the big one here. All right, guys, have a good one. See you on Wednesday. Yeah.
Is the lab quiz on the veins, the seed part